Okay, so this video is for Project 5 for the Spring 2016 Typography class at Ivy Tech, Indianapolis. And we are talking about printing at this point. So you guys are going to have two first drafts. I think for me, I only have really one design. Everything else is still in progress. So I'm just going to print one design for now. And we need to, first off, make sure that anything that goes off the edge, which is called a bleed, is pulled. Now, right now I'm in the print preview mode, which is hitting the W key. When I hit the W key again, this is the normal mode, which is a lot of noise, but it lets me know a few things. It lets me know that, one, let me hit the W key again. Okay, when I toggle between W and not having W, preview and non-preview, or normal, you'll see I have a red line around this document. Now, if I hit the W key again, it's gone, and it's completely outside that document. That red line is known as the bleed line. Okay, that red line will not print. However, graphics that bleed off the page need to be pulled to that line or beyond, so that when you cut this out, you don't accidentally get a little shave of white in there, just a little bit of white. So always pull your bleeds when they're going off of the edge of the page. So I'm going to investigate my document and look at what things bleed. Well, this G bleeds, so you'll see that it goes past the edge into the bleed line. So does my H. My I bleeds a little bit, that's not a big deal. The whole entire background graphic bleeds. I have some lines here that are bleeding. As long as they go to the red line, I'm fine. And this picture of Gutenberg looking at the typos that Fust put on his Bible, this is bled, and it's fine. It's going to the red line. Okay, so my bleeds are going to the red line or beyond in most cases. That's called, I pulled my bleeds. So if you hear somebody say, hey, you need to pull your bleeds, that means that, let's say, for instance, I'm going to have mine not pulled. That means, for instance, in this case, this bleed has not been pulled. Even though I have a color or a graphic that goes all the way to the edge of the page, it has to go 1/8 of an inch beyond the edge or further to be considered a bleed. Okay? So I have to pull my bleeds. So we all have to be cognizant of that before we even start to print. Make sure your bleeds are pulled. Okay, so my bleeds are pulled. After you've pulled, now if you do not have this red line, now I know when we started this document we had the red line as part of our document setup, but let's say you forgot that you were supposed to put this bleed line in there. If you forgot and you have no red line when you hit the W key, you would go to File, Document Setup, and you would click on the bleed and slug arrow, and you would set your bleed at 1/8 of an inch on the top, bottom, inside, and outside. That equivalent in points is 9, so it's P9. Or you can type in 0.125 IN, and it will convert to P9. Okay? So that's how I got the red line in the first place. That red line does not print. It's just there to let you know, hey, you need to have your graphics go that far out or further. Now, I'm going to save this. And I'm going to print, for me, it's going to be pages 116 and 117. So I'm going to have to specify that. Now, when I'm ready to print this, I go to File and Print, Command P. And I want to make sure for this one, I don't want to be printing in thumbnails, so I'm going to have to turn that off. And I don't want to print to the black and white printer, so I want to make sure I'm printing to the color printer in this case. And I also want to make sure that it's not printing my grid structure. Okay, the grid doesn't really print. So in this general print area, I want to uncheck Print Visible Guides and Baseline Grid. We had that checked on whenever we were printing our thumbnails, so we could see the grid. So uncheck that. And make sure all of these options are unchecked. For the printer type, we want to choose not the HP 8150 found in room T341. We want to choose the Xerox 7800, which is the color printer, and that's found in room T328, which is the room that we're in. Now, if you don't have spreads selected and it has pages selected, you want to make sure spreads is checked, or the little radio button is clicked on. Okay, spreads means it's going to print the left page and the right page together. You don't want pages selected. You don't want them individually. So that's all we had to change in the general area.
The
Options was uncheck anything that's down here. Most specifically, I talked about print visible guides and baseline grid. Make sure that's unchecked. Okay. So the three things we changed was the printer type, which is color, spreads, we made sure that was on, and we made sure none of the options were selected for non-printing objects or blank pages or visible guides and baseline grid. We don't want to print those. Now, I'm going to go over here to the far left area, and I'm going to click on Setup. For Setup, this is a fairly large page. These are 8 inches by 8 inches, but they're going to be printing next to each other, so this will be 16 inches wide. To accommodate that, I'm going to have to use tabloid paper, not letter size paper. So make sure your paper size is set to tabloid. Now we keep seeing in the preview these two little documents. Let's change that. Those are called thumbnails. We printed this document in thumbnails last time we printed it. So uncheck thumbnails and you'll see a whole different look now to this. Now these are not fitting on the page properly, so I need to use my orientation. Instead of portrait, I need to choose landscape. Okay, so the things that we've changed here is we changed paper size to tabloid. We made the orientation landscape. We turned off thumbnails. And the last thing we want to make sure of is usually the page position says upper left. We want to make sure that says centered. And make sure that scale to fit is not turned on. You want it to be 100% width and height. Scale to fit will make it smaller more than likely, or bigger. We just want to make sure it's the same proportion that we designed it in. Now, the next place I'm going to go, so I know where to cut this out and I know where to fold it, is marks and bleeds. For this, I'm going to turn on crop marks. Do not turn on bleed marks, you will get confused. But do turn on registration marks. Don't worry about turning anything else on. What the registration marks will do is they will be at the dead center at the top and bottom of the spread, and it'll let you know where to fold it. Now those aren't folding marks, those are just happen to be dead center, so I'm going to use them to indicate fold. For bleed and slug, if you have the red line around here, which is where we set the document bleed setting, you can click on Use Document Bleed Setting and it will automatically include that extra little bit of information. And it tells us here in gray, we can't change this, that we've set the bleed to P9, which is 9 points, which is also equivalent to 1/8 of an inch. So I don't have to type anything in because I set my document bleed settings up when I create the document. All right. Now I typically will click on page setup to make sure that this format 4, where it says the printer, I want to make sure that that's the same printer as what I set up here in the printer dialog box. It is. I also want to make sure that says tabloid, and it does. Usually this doesn't change, but occasionally it might, so I always double check. So I'm going to hit OK. I didn't have to change anything there. Now the last place we want to go, because you guys will be printing 2 of these spreads, you have 2 first drafts due, meaning you'll have 4 pages, which are 2 spreads, 2 pages per spread. We don't want it to print front and back, so click on Printer and turn off two-sided printing. This gets you guys every time. I see it every time you guys have something to turn in. You forget this detail of turning off two-sided printing. It is not acceptable to have something printed 2 sides and then flip it over on the wall for critique, because we're doing compare and contrast. We can't compare and contrast whenever we can't see the other side at the same time. So make sure you turn off two-sided and you're printing 2 different pieces of paper. If you forget and you have two-sided printing on, turn it off and print the other spread. Now, hitting print is in essence the same thing as hitting OK, so I'm going to hit print. I go back to general and make sure that don't tell it to print all pages if you want specific pages to be printed. Well, oftentimes I'll delete extra pages so I don't have to deal with this. So I could hit print, and I can hit OK, and then I can cancel the print job by hitting Command period. Now all those print settings will be saved. In fact, I'm going to save this document. So if you wanted to save your print settings without actually printing, print it, cancel the printing, save the document, and those print settings will be saved. But I may want to go through here and delete unused pages. And how we do that is in the Pages dialog box, I can click on the first page I want to delete, and I hold down the Shift key and click on the last page I want to delete and hit the trash can. It asks me, oh, do you want these to be deleted? And I'm like, okay. Now I started another layout which is not completed, so I guess I do have two first drafts here. That one is too much like that one, and I need to make it much more different. I was just trying to enhance this one. So that's not technically a second draft fully. It's more of a slight variation of this first draft here. But I'm going to just print the first two pages. So when I hit Command P, which is File Print, you'll see that it remembered that all of my settings. So it remembers that I want to go to the color printer. It remembers that it's tabloid and that it's centered and that it's landscape. It remembered I wanted crop marks and registration marks. And it should have remembered that I did not want two-sided. So that's how that trick works. Now, I do want to definitely tell it which pages to print. So I am going to do pages 116 and 117. Let's see if it gives me an error. Nope. So I put in 116, 117. I don't want pages 1 and 18 and 19 printed. So you can specify which pages. I'm going to hit print. Hopefully it doesn't tell me that, hey, those pages don't exist. And assuming that, I can't assume anything, but I'm assuming the printer is working okay, but you know, it's probably been 2 weeks since it's been shut down. So this is a nice test for me to see if printing is working. And its printer is kicking on. And you guys will want to, when these are printed, you'll want to cut them out and actually, well, you want to fold them first down the center and then cut them out. The folding is nice because it lets us know where the center of your spread is. And cutting it, of course, lets us know exactly what this looks like, what your intention is without all the extra white paper around it. So it is printing, and hopefully it's printing, going to do a good job. It'll probably go darker than what is on the screen because it usually does. And I should have had something that came out, and again, it might go a little darker, but yeah, it's got crop marks. Crop marks are out here that kind of invading the space of the color. That's okay. I still line my ruler up to those and cut that out. This is my registration mark. I line my ruler here, and I'll take another ruler. And I'll run down there just to create a score. Sometimes I'll take my fingernail and score it. I'll fold it. Then I'll cut it out. Okay. Now you could save yourself a little time if you scored it, folded it this way. I always score first, so don't do what I'm doing now, which is I like to score so it'll fold right on the line. Plus, it's a nice fold. It's a real crisp fold when you score. If you don't score, it's a little less crisp. Your fold is kind of bumpy. But as long as you fold perfectly on those straight lines, then all you have to do is cut out one side, as long as you're making it through both sheets. And the only bad thing about this is, where's my other crop mark over here? You don't know. That's the bad thing. You might run a ruler across here, put a little mark across the spine. Then when you fold it, you'll see that mark and you'll know exactly where to cut out. So that will save you a little extra time in cutting, is if you fold it and you cut it when it's folded. Then you open it up after it's cut and you put it on the critique wall. Okay? But we do want to cut this after you fold it. Fold first, cut last.
Well, if it does put the top mark there, how do you get rid of it? Like in the center?
Yeah, what I do, we'll have to come back for just a second. I'm going to stop the recording. You guys might want to come back here to the workbench here.